So this is a video essay about the film Koyaanisqatsi, but before we talk about Koyaanisqatsi, I want to tell you a little bit about how I first found the film. I first heard about it in the same way that a lot of you probably heard about it, in the Leonard Maltin's TV and Movie Guide. And Leonard gave it a really good review, gave it top marks, 4 stars, 5 stars, but he didn't really say what the film was, so I kind of read this review, didn't really understand, didn't have a clean picture of what the film was. So I went to my local video shop and found a copy of it on VHS and read the box, and that didn't elucidate any secrets either, so I had to just buy the film, take it home, watch it, and that's what told me what Koyaanisqatsi was. So to tell you a little bit about what Koyaanisqatsi is before we start talking about it, Koyaanisqatsi is a 1982 film by Godfrey Reggio. The soundtrack's by Philip Glass, and it's very much a collaboration between them. It is what you might call a dialogue-free or a non-narrative film, although we'll come back to that term later. It juxtaposes footage of the natural world against the man-made world, and asks us to infer some kind of meaning from this juxtaposition. We are aided in understanding what the title means. So the title Koyaanisqatsi is Hopi Indian, it has a number of different meanings: life out of balance, crazy life, way of life that calls for another way of living. So bearing that title in mind and then looking at these pictures that it puts next to each other, it obviously has something to say. We call it non-narrative, but there's obviously a point being made here. Another thing to mention is that when I first saw Koyaanisqatsi, I was very interested in cinematography and in shots that looked good. I had this kind of list in my head of shots that look good in the cinema, and that's how I first approached the film. I was looking for these things that looked great, and I was kind of taking them in isolation. So I was like, oh, I like that shot. Oh, I like that shot. Oh, I like that shot. But I wasn't able to see the entire film, and it's only as I've got older and seen more things and done more stuff that every time I come back to this film, I find that there's a lot more to it. Koyaanisqatsi has a heart that other films simply don't have. A lot of people these days are kind of the opinion that because Koyaanisqatsi's style has been co-opted by the world of advertising, the film is now toothless. The film now has nothing more to say because the style has been subsumed into the world of advertising. But that would be kind of to miss the point a little bit. What you're watching right now, this is an ad. This is selling you something. It wants you to buy something. It wants you to feel confident in who you are and in the world around you. The whole point of Koyaanisqatsi is to question the world around you and to ask you to look at what's around you and come to some conclusion. And Koyaanisqatsi, quite wonderfully, doesn't necessarily tell you what that conclusion is. It just asks you to bounce an idea around in your head for a while. Like, imagine being so naive that you can't see the difference between Koyaanisqatsi and advertising, but whatever. So, non-narrative, but let's talk about second unit. Second unit is a type of photography done in filmmaking. You have your first unit, or your principal photography, which is filming all the actors doing things and walking around and saying all the words and stuff. Then you have second unit, which is, it can be smaller things, like it can be hands picking things up, or it can be keys going into locks or that kind of thing. But then principally, a lot of us come to second unit with footage of cities. You'll have seen many films where they film a city and then they just pop it in the beginning of the film while the credits roll out. Those shots of the city, they were not filmed by your favourite filmmakers. Those shots are filmed by second unit teams, second unit camera operators. They never got to meet Robert De Niro. They just got up early, filmed the city, handed everything in. And what Koyaanisqatsi does is it takes this idea of second unit photography, something which is meant to be in the background, and Koyaanisqatsi puts that background in the foreground. It strips away any idea of character or event, kind of, and just puts the background into the foreground. That's one of the things which is so special about this film. As Gene Wilder sang in the opening credits of Stir Crazy, "Give me a town like old New York, with lots of trees and clean, fresh air." Now, when I first saw Stir Crazy, I didn't understand that Gene Wilder was being sardonic. He was making a joke. He was saying that New York is not a clean, lots of trees, fresh air kind of place. But I didn't get that because I was 5 or 6 when I first saw Stir Crazy, and I just didn't understand irony whatsoever. Another reason why I didn't really understand that Gene Wilder wouldn't be completely sincere about how wonderful New York is because of this. This is where I grew up. This is where I spent my childhood. The line between Sesame Street and Stir Crazy and my childhood, this is all the same time period. It's all collapsing on top of each other. I watched a lot of Sesame Street. I knew these streets. I knew these kids. And that might be one of the reasons why Koyaanisqatsi vibes with me quite as much as it does, because I felt so comfortable in the streets of New York. In fact, many years later, when I was to go to New York for the first time in 1999, it felt like coming home. It felt like I knew this place. I knew these streets. I've seen them before many times on the screen, in Sesame Street, in my dreams, in Koyaanisqatsi. Now, Sesame Street was my world. The streets I grew up on were indistinguishable from these streets, so much so that I couldn't even tell when Sesame Street was faking it and it was actually a set. I thought, well, that's real too. Cut to many, many, many years later, me watching the Internecine project. Not a great film, but the opening credit sequence does the second unit thing, kind of, maybe. I don't know who shot these bits, but it does the second unit thing of roving around a city while the credits play out. The difference being in the Internecine project is that these are the streets where I grew up. I know these streets so well, I can't explain to you. And the punch of seeing a place that you know, of seeing your life on the screen, cannot be underestimated. It's a very powerful thing. Koyaanisqatsi kind of gets into the punch of you seeing your life on the screen. What is more your life than you and the people that you share it with? And that's what's at the heart of Koyaanisqatsi, is these people. Now, earlier on I spoke about how Koyaanisqatsi has heart that a lot of films don't have, and a lot of that is wrapped up with the people that this film shows us. The unrecorded, undocumented lives that were happening in and around Los Angeles and New York that we would not have known about otherwise, but here they are, recorded on the screen, large as life, for everyone to see. And these are beautiful moments in people's lives. It doesn't only take the background of second unit of cities, it takes the background of unrecorded, undocumented lives and puts them on the camera. The number of times I've watched Koyaanisqatsi and guy with the ice cream, or the old guy having a cigarette at work, there's a degree of some of them, they're a bit staged, or some people are aware of the camera filming them, some people are not, some people confront that camera filming them, they don't like it. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing something akin to the cinema of Andy Warhol. We're seeing the lives of real people on the silver screen. These are not lives that we're meant to see, because cinema tells us that these are the stories that we put on the screen, these are the people that we have act them out, and then there's everybody else in the background who watches and doesn't partake. This is the heart of the film. This is what makes it quite so special. It's not just this juxtaposition of the natural world and look at the disaster we've made of it, but the people who have to live in it, the people whose small lives, which go unrecorded and unnoticed, they finally get their moment. They get their moment in the sun, they get to be the center of attention, and each and every one of these moments is utterly beautiful. And I guess that's kind of what I got from Koyaanisqatsi. There are so many things. I think if I come back to the film in 5 years' time, I will see something new which I'd never noticed before. And that's one of the things which is great about it. It's a film which grows with you over time. As you change, the film changes as well. As you experience more things, the film starts to take on more meanings, and that's just wonderful. I feel like I should go quiet so we can take in some of these people. So that's what I learned from Koyaanisqatsi. Nothing that I can write down on a little piece of paper and put in a fortune cookie. It's complicated and massive, but you know, so is human life, so that's fine.